could actually give you a chance in those matchups as blue-white-red, but it's a lot of sideboard space. That's a lot of space. It's a lot of space, so you need to really be careful. Could you just run Rough Tumble over the second anchor? The problem with Rough and Tumble is twofold. The first problem with Rough and Tumble is I don't know if it got a reprint from Modern off the top of my head. Oh yeah, it did. Okay, so the first issue with Rough Tumble is it only hits... Okay, you want me to run Rough Tumble over the Power Class now? Doesn't hit flyers though. And when am I gonna need to tumble? 6 damage to each creature with flying unless it's like a resto. I don't know. I think I'd still rather want Pyro. It also doesn't exile, which is true. Another thought is maybe we don't need the tutable Classum, that we've already got plenty of burn sweepers. We wouldn't need to muddle for one. It has come up, but that's pretty slow. I mean, turn 3 tutoring for this, and then you need it the next turn. Ambitious. So, it also doesn't line up very well against Zoo anyway. It's good against like elves, Delver variants, any sort of young peasy. I would still bring this in against Coco, although you still would rather have Anger. Volcanic Fallout? No, I mean, you want the Anger to exile. You want to be exiling Voice of Resurgence, Kitchen Finks are the 2 big ones. There's a lot of other creatures you want to be exiling completely. Those are just the 2 that are major. Those are the most relevant ones. There's also that Dredge deck that people are popularizing. Anger the Gods is very good against that Dredge deck if you can hold out long enough, and Cryptic can help you do that. You could run heavier on Cryptics. Yeah, I mean, I've been less and less impressed with some of these cards. They could just get over the fact. I could just get over the fact that it's probably not going to curve no matter how many times I move everything. Like, you can argue that Visions, although I'm suspending it for a single blue sometimes, doesn't get cast till here, by the way. Just so you realize, this does not come off suspension until turn 5. Now, if you Brain Cestral it, I can do it as early as turn 3. That's only if I'm going to be running that 1 land. It's probably more accurate a turn 4 play. The Ancestral if you're going to use Brain to do it. So, keep that in mind. It's slow. It's grindy. You'll need your Helixes and Bolts and Paths to carry you. Anyway. Just run 3rd Anger in the side if you're the one to make people rage. Yeah. Witness or Screws targets. Yeah, I've been less and less impressed with the second Spell Snare. So, scry more games. Mackie wants to know about the sideboard recall. No, this was actually originally a Stony Silence, because what I was doing, which is pretty shiesty, although it's not that great. The problem with the sideboard Stony Silence, or Silences, was that I was boarding out my artifact package, and then bringing in Stonies. The problem with that is your opponent's bringing in removal for your brains and your thought, mostly the Thopter Foundry is what they're thinking about. If you killed them this way, then you're bringing these in, they're like, oh, I'm going to destroy that. Same can be said for my wheel. Like, as far as, like, graveyard shenanigans are concerned. Like, anytime, okay, let me put it this way. Anytime I'm boarding into a permanent that is of this size, like you're talking if you're thinking Abrupt Decay, like, this has some anti-synergy, because if you're boarding this package out, your opponent is presumably boarding in artifact removal if that's what they lost to. But now you're just playing into their hands, so we started talking about maybe recall instead of Stonies. It's also tutorable, they're both tutorable with Muddle, but more importantly is it sits safely in your hand, it can blow out, you can reuse it with Snapcaster Mage, whereas I've noticed that the Stony Silence has been getting destroyed. Nature's claimed, to be precise, so even the Wheel of Sun and Moon has that anti-synergy, although there are some decks that I like this against. You can't even really use this necessarily against Lantern because they might still have the Abrupt Decays in because of this. So we might want to look into some other forms of Graveyard Hate as well. Anyway, 2 life remove all copies. You mean Surgical Extraction? You can run a 1 of Surgical. Yeah. I've done it before. I've run 1 to 2 Surgicals before. It's spicy. People don't expect it from Blue-White Red, but it has a real cost. Yeah, you could run a Surgical. I've done it before in Blue-White Red. I've done it before in plenty... I've had plenty of Legacy decks that had nothing to do with Black that greedily ran a 1 or 2 of Surgical. I do have Surgicals in paper, which is nice. Like, yeah, we can try that instead of the wheel. It's not tutorable, though, but... Yeah, I mean, you could run a Rest in Peace. The problem with Rest in Peace is it had anti-synergy with my Snapcaster Mages. So, you know... Honestly, against a lot of the graveyard decks, so you're better off just either, if they're Dredge, angering them, or if they're Grishelbrand, you're better off just countering everything, because Grishelbrand doesn't just operate from the graveyard. Is it correct for me to not have any graveyard hate at all? No. I mean, like, Living End is a thing. If you can keep countering every single Living End, then you're fine, but... It might be correct for me to not even bother trying to fight over those specifics and just run some more sideboard counters. I had a sideboard negate for a while. So, Muddle's a pretty flexible counterspell as well. You can counter everything from Living End to Scape Shift and everything in between. Breaches, Goryo's Vengeance. Crazy thought. Aggro's are concerned, right? No, aggro's not my concern. No. That's why I'm heavy on Helix, to make that concern not a concern. Yeah, Living End. SSS counters Living End? What? Yeah, I mean, like, you know... Those are some options. Those are some options. Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I like the Wear Tear. I might even run 2. Yeah, I mean, these bullets are sweet. They're slow, but you can potentially draw them naturally, or you can tutor for them. Run Sprite. Furious Spice. What's my enchant removal besides Wear Tear? You want me to run 2? I mean, I've considered a 2 of this, and I've considered a 2 of Crumble for a while now. I mean, Wear Tear is solid. It's tutorable with Muddle. I don't mind 2 copies of it. It's flexible enough. I've even, like, brought this in against Burn, because you can just tear an Eidolon.